I'm Wem.
And I'm Lewis.
This is the Forest School Podcast.
Let's go!
No, got what?
This recording box is really hot.
Yes.
We said how are we going to start? And you said, oh, I've got it. And then
No, I was talking about my Song Wars song. I just had a light bulb moment about what my Song Wars song is going to be.
You had half of that conversation in your head.
Sorry.
My son does this. Just in the back of the car goes, you know those ones, Daddy? They're not...
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
What is going on, son?
Which ones? Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we should just go straight into... This is resources part two. Part two. Because in part one we talked...
This time it's consumable.
It is. This time it's consumable. That's quite good, wasn't
That was impressive.
So we talked lots in the last episode about, like, it started off with people using resources or playing with things in a way that might end up with them getting broken and how we respond to that.
Yeah.
And then it kind of went off in all kinds of directions, didn't it?
So many. Which is rare for us.
Oh, I know. It's almost like we don't know how to stay on topic. Anyway, this one I really want to talk about. So rather than interacting with something in a way that means it's going to get broken, I want to talk about...
Being a greedy guts.
Yeah. So...
Being Mr. Greedy.
So here's the thing that I just, just putting a little button in my soul there. Clay.
Yeah.
Bags of clay. So we use normal, like, potter's clay. So it's not air dry because that's full of little strands of plastic. And when kids use it, they really go for it. And they make, and they make, and they make, and they make. And we've had, like, whole woodland kind of Warhammer style armies.
Oh yeah, we made like 200 little figures once,
which were the most precious things that anyone had ever owned. Until
they weren't.
They weren't. They were just boxes upon boxes of broken, powdery shrapnel that then couldn't really be thrown away because they had been the most precious things in the universe. And also people didn't really want to take them home. They're quite hard to take home. Anyway, I digress. But sometimes people just want to use the entire bag of clay to make the kind of biggest item that is possible, the biggest pot, the tallest tower, which is fair enough. You know, that's their play and that's what they want to do. Except I'm like, they're using all the clay and we're going to run out of clay and the clay costs money and it's quite hard to source sometimes. And so trying to find the words and trying to navigate that. Because I don't want to stop. What I don't want to do is stop the play, because the play is get more of the thing and it feels good in the hands and it makes the big
Forager's
thing.
high almost.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I want to talk about. Okay. So I just looked up, like, collecting. I was like, is collecting a schema? I just had to go back and review the list of play schemas.
And it isn't. Oh.
It isn't. It's not on there, but I did
I'm
find...
cut this in. Hang on.
What?
I don't think it is actually, mate. I don't think you'll find it is.
It isn't. Do you want to hear the list? Just as... trajectory, transporting, enclosing, rotational, enveloping, connecting, orientation.
I've always said enveloping because it reminds me of an envelope.
Well, yes, it is the same root, but I would pronounce it enveloping.
Just a thing. But it's just why we can't work together.
Anyway, but I did find a website that was like, it's kind of weird that collecting isn't a schema because it's such a kind of natural collecting, gathering, harvesting,
sorting, organising, categorising.
That's slightly different. That's slightly different. But that kind of thing, and I'm really interested to know what that urge is, that forager's high, that kind of thing of like, I must have the things, because I get it really, really strongly. So it's kind of funny that I then get a little bit like when somebody has it about the clay.
It's not. It's because you and the children are in competition for the resource.
Do you think? But I don't want the clay.
If you're accepting that there's a deep-seated, that you have that need to...
But not... Okay, maybe. But I don't necessarily have that about the clay. Like, I don't want to keep the clay. I want them to use the clay.
Do you think...
But, for example,
Yeah,
right,
okay, go on.
I was in Cornwall last week, and Cornwall is amazing for hydrangeas, which are my favourite plant, my favourite flower.
Loads of them.
Oh, my God. And I look at a full-on shrub full of hydrangeas, and I get that same feeling. I want the things. It's like a greed. It's like an urge to get them and, like, have them in my house. Okay. I'm like, why? Why do I have that need to want to... My precious... I'm getting the same emotional and joyful experience looking at these things growing on the bush as I would if they were in a vase in my house. But I want... And obviously I don't pick the things and put them in a vase in my house because that's ridiculous. But I get that I must have the nice things. And maybe it is a kind of same instinct as, like, harvest the berries because you're going to need them. Get loads of them. Get fucking loads of the berries now because they're there now and they won't be there in a couple of weeks. Yeah. Maybe it is a kind of... you know, whatever you call it, an evolutionary pattern of behaviour. Yeah.
There's also something that is like, I think, I'm going to wait for this. There's a tractor coming. Do you feel the need to collect all the tractors?
No, but some people do.
Do you want to know a little... I'm just going to brag. I did a strongman competition the other day and I pulled a tractor with my body. I pulled a 4-ton tractor.
Ooh la la. With a person in it.
With a person in it.
Ooh.
This is country life.
I think I've told you before that I knew I'd moved to Devon when in toddler group with my kids, bouncing up and down on a big red tractor, bringing in the strawberries. Learned that song, and then the play leader goes, "And what colour tractor should we have now, children?" Massey Ferguson pipes up one 2-year-old. Not green tractor, bringing in the cucumbers, but Massey Ferguson. Anyway.
So foragers collecting urge. That anything that gets a whiff of scarcity.
That's what I want to talk about.
Puts the mind in that, like, whoosh! It's not. Oh my God, a bird just shit on your head. Oh my God, a bird just shit on your head, and you've wiped the biggest black mark all over your forehead. This is incredible.
Stop it.
A bird shit all over your head.
It's very lucky. Stop the tape.
Hang on, we'll come back.
Okay, I've removed the bird poo from my face. It's fine. It's all fine. Oh my God.
Before you were physically shit on, you were talking about the urge to collect scarce things.
Yes, the urge, and so loose parts, right? So parts that are designed to be manipulated by people playing in whatever way they want to do. No preconceived outcome, just like freely given. Calling back to the last episode of the podcast where you proposed some categories of freely given resources. Just do whatever you want with these. Go for it.
Yeah.
Conditionally given and not given at all.
Yeah.
So loose parts being freely given, and I've got no
ownership.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe with the caveat that we're not going to like smash them to pieces and then scatter them around the woods because that'd be really hard to clean up and things like that. Okay. Those kind of caveats.
Yeah.
Like
so it's actually conditional.
It is a little bit conditional.
So I'm trying to work out if there's ever anything that would go in unconditionally. That's a different topic.
Yes. Well, no. Anyway. So with clay, I think, and again, calling back to the previous episode, that sentence of saying, if we use all the clay, then other members of the community won't be able to enjoy it, and kind of leaving it there and maybe being happy with them going, but I really need to use all the clay. And then, because I have had conversations like that, because the other thing is that often I think we give children too little credit for problem solving, that if you put out that concern, like I'm worried that if we use all the clay today, then there won't be any for the group who are coming tomorrow or next week or whatever, and to let that sit for a bit, that often you might get a child offering a solution to that problem, like, how about I just need to do this thing now, I'm going to use it all, but then I'll put it back in the bag, or when it's dry, which we have started doing, putting it in the bucket with some water and rejigging it to be usable again, and that often they will come up with those ideas, and that is a really valuable learning process.
A lot of empathy going on there.
Yeah. and problem solving independently, and not feeling like they're forced to do anything through shame and judgment. But I'm trying to think about like other resources where maybe that's not quite so possible. So like paint, ribbons, and like how.
So paracord is one of those ones. And
Yeah.
I have, in the last, I would say, year, been experimenting with a system where I like pre-cut paracord to like meter, 3 meter, 5 meter lengths, just at home before it ever makes it to the woods.
Yeah.
And then seeing what happens if we just don't ever cut paracord. And like, sometimes that's conversations about like, well, this is too big for my thing. And like, okay, so that needs wrapping round then and tuck the end in. But what that means is we've still got a resource when we take it apart, or like, yeah, but otherwise I end up with, 1,000 2-inch pieces of paracord that aren't actually good for anything. So this is what we've got, and this way we can keep it for longer. So that's my thing that's been, but with that, paracord is slightly more freely given, I think, because of just it's hard to break paracord.
Thanks to everybody that's rating and reviewing on Spotify and iTunes. It really helps us to find new listeners and share what we're doing with more and more people.
But there's two kind of elements to that. One is that sentence of that people say, "Can I take this home?" And I find that another, in the previous episode, we talked about how forest school being this really weird space, which is quite hard to navigate for lots of people, because it's like, how am I supposed to behave? How am I supposed to treat that resource? You mean I'm allowed to do this? I'm allowed to like, whatever. And the amount of questions the times that question gets asked of me, that's will make something or collect something or harvest something. And can I take this home? Am I allowed to take this home? And that is such an interesting question, because sometimes it's completely obvious to you as a practitioner. Of course you can, like, you made
all day whittling that.
Yeah, exactly. Of course you can take it home. And sometimes it's not completely obvious, but often it's not completely obvious to the learner. That's why they're asking.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's quite surprising that they're even asking. Like, I would just assume, of course, you've made the thing from start to finish, like it's yours, And other times it might be about like. And I was that kid. I was the kid at school that was like, I want this. Can I have it? Can I take it home? I want all the things.
Leads into that thing of like, what's the minimum I have to do for this to become a craft in air quotes? Like, if I put a line on it with some pen, does that count as like a drawing? And then I get to take the thing home.
Yeah.
That's count.
And I think the reason that I wanted to take things home was because I definitely thought I value this item way more than anyone here could ever possibly imagine, and way more than anyone else would value it, including you, adult. You don't know how precious this thing is. It's so precious. And I'm going to use it for the freaking coolest thing at home. It's worth it. It's not just, I didn't just want it for the sake of it.
For the coolest thing? The stuff
well, usually the answer was no. So I couldn't. But yes, it's occasionally when
you
it
had
was.
The best intentions.
And it is that thing of like, I've cut up a bit of this now. So this leftover bit is basically unusable, teacher. So let me have it, because I'm going to make some kick-ass stuff at home. And I would. Yeah, I would. And it was incredibly valuable to me. But there also was that scarcity mindset, I think. That's the kind of looping back to that. And you sort of don't know what's going on for people when they're asking those questions about, can I take this home?
Yeah.
You don't know.
There's a lot. There can be loads under that.
Layers upon layers upon layers. And how you deal with that is quite a sensitive issue, I think.
There's also something forest school being a needs-centered, I'm going to call it a needs-centered pedagogy, because that feels wanky enough. So you and I don't do this in our practice, but other people do. I saw someone the other day saying that the way they run their toddler group, so you know how we would kind of go, we're going to play these games, we're going to go off in here, do this. If you want to, over on that craft table, there's some, I can't think of an example that we would have done. Oh, there's some like paper and there's some like different shades of mud paint. And do that thing. So this person runs a toddler group, and whatever the craft is, goes in a reusable like drawstring bag, all the resources for it. So like some paintbrushes, a bag of dried mud, and some paper. And each person then has like their name on a drawstring bag on the table.
Yes.
And then they can choose to do it at the session, or they can choose to take it home and do the craft at home. And this person was talking about how long they spend prepping these bags. Hours.
Was that a COVID preparation thing?
No.
That was a different thing.
This is this week.
Oh,
this week,
okay.
2023. That's how they run their normal.
I'm sure I
group.
read about that in a how on earth are you managing to?
Yes, I also saw people keeping that. But so that's what. Okay. But that's why I think it's interesting because it is there on offer. But which is super interesting.
It is.
But it also raises an interesting thing that you and I don't do anything really where we have a like allocation per person. With the clay might be the closest we get where we might go, well, there's 5 kids here, junk that, okay, rip it into, that's a reasonable piece, that's a reasonable, but it's rare that we would ever, I mean, maybe bread would be different, where we would go like, here are 8 bowls of flour, each one has like basically the same amount of flour, but that sort of urge to resource hoard and make yours bigger, I wonder how that...
So common. Now that you're bringing it...
I wonder how that plays out
Yeah.
in that thing of, like, you arrive and you see that everyone has already got their allocation. And so does that make you go, ooh, this is even more precious because they've divvied it out and it's really important that everyone gets an equal... Or does it make you go the other way in that you go, it's already been divvied out, there is no point engaging with getting more or less. This is my allocation.
I can relax.
Either I can chill or I have to mask and lump this. You know... Like we were saying last episode about the mucky middle, the bum and sticks middle ground of what are the expectations here? Why is it the extreme is everyone's is pre-allocated in these bags or on the table, and so that changes some people's interaction with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And now you're bringing up other examples like bread. I'm thinking about the amount of times that some people will go, oh, can I just have a bit more? I just need a bit more cinnamon. I just need a bit more. I just need a bit more. And that is a need. And is it like where does it come from and how do you meet that need? Do you know what I mean? Is it a kind of like genuinely like resources are scarce in my life and I have a need to, when there's an opportunity, get some stuff. Yeah. Definitely valid. Some people are living...
You always ask. Don't ask, don't get.
Yeah.
I just always need to ask.
Yeah.
The risk outweighs the reward.
Yeah, and then maybe like at home there isn't a lot of stuff like, and therefore I don't even ask because I know the answer is going to be no. Yeah. But here there seems to be some stuff, and like so I need to get it while I can, and that's completely, that is absolute. That makes complete sense.
Valid. Yep.
Yeah.
Totally valid.
And so, could it also be a like, how much can I trust this adult? How much are they going to support me in my needs? How much, if I ask for something, when are they going to always give me what I am asking for? Or are they going to withhold things that I need from me? And how much can I trust them? And what's my relationship with them? Or is it like that feeling I'm describing about like just wanting all the hydrangeas just because it's fun to get things?
Well, there's another one as well, though.
What's the other one?
Which I think is a social comparison.
Yeah.
Which there is a need where some people need... the way I'm going to phrase it is I need a win. I actually can't, in terms of my social standing or in terms of my emotional needs, I can't be on the same footing as everyone else.
Yes, true.
My bread shape that's going in the oven needs to be noticeably different, bigger than everyone else's. That's really important for me right now. Yeah. Again, totally valid. Difficult to navigate, but like the bread one, I think that.
And it comes to that thing of equality versus equity, because my instinct. Sorry, I've just smacked the microphone. My instinct, now that we've kind of laid out all of those reasons why somebody might ask for more, is meet the need where you can. Say yes where you can, within reason. Like if you genuinely know you're going to buy another bag of flour anyway for the next group, and it's not really any skin off anyone's nose to just give them more, because they're asking for it, but then also to be able to do the same for anyone else who also then goes, well, can I have more? And then to have the conversation about it and go, oh, okay, well, there's not quite enough for us all to have more. Or, do you know what I mean? But if it's just one person, because often it is just one person, one or two people, you know, who have that need for whatever of those reasons.
And
we
some
can't
we haven't
know.
even said.
We can't know the background reason why someone's asking for more. But if we can meet that
Might just be
need...
they want more cinnamon. They just think cinnamon tastes nice.
Yeah, exactly that. Exactly that. Not all behaviour is communication. Anyway, that my instinct says that the more often you're able to say yes within reason, that you're not stinting yourself or anyone else, the more that person might be able to feel that their needs are being met and therefore relax and trust the adults and the place. Do you know what I mean? Do you agree with that?
Do I agree with that? I do. I think that, the more you're able to say yes and facilitate to an extent is to do, because there's sometimes where you might feel, and I guess this is like a leader exploring your own feelings around the issue.
Yeah.
Like, someone is taking advantage of me now. Then I get into, no, this person is 6. They're not taking advantage of me. I'm a 33-year-old man. They're not taking advantage of a fucking flower.
They're trying to, they're trying to see how far they can push it. Yeah. It's like, maybe they are. Yeah. That's okay.
But so that's where I just stumbled very slightly on that. Like,
that's kind of what this whole discussion is about. It's about how it makes you feel.
There is a difference, and like there's a sliding scale in resources. In that, I think actually bread is something of a, not a red herring, but something of a difficult one to have picked. But I chose it because it's something that we divide out. But it has other more. I don't like Maslow, but lower on the hierarchy of needs would be food. It then makes it easier to justify, of course, more food. How dare I withhold this? Yeah. So then you move slightly up and you kind of go, okay, so clay is not about food and sustenance, it's about play. Yeah. So then do you see that differently? Because are we then going like, are we genuinely making a hierarchy here and going, I'll try and say yes to food as much as I can, but I will not try and say yes to play as often? Or is it to do, is it to do with the fact that flour is probably now like 80p a bag, whereas clay is difficult to come by and a lot more expensive, and so the implications of taking a little bit more carry greater weight than, of course, you can have 13p more of flour. And then, could you extend that even further and think of something that's like super high end that maybe, so we have before, it's like slightly circles back, but we have before brought in like some, I think it was elderflower drink, elderflower cordial, something. We bought something fermented in. Yeah. And because I can remember emailing all of the parents and being like, this is a fermented thing, I've brought this in. There's a chance it has it, because I remember because I said, chance it has a tiny bit of alcohol. But it doesn't, so it's fine. But super limited resource. A lot more high value than clay. Definitely something that people were like, can we have a bit more? Can I have a bit more? Can I have a bit more? And it carries not just like, well, that was difficult to come by. Like, no, I foraged this and I brewed it for months. So the implications of having a little bit, like, what are the criteria that you talked before about putting the sausage through the sieve, but like, what are the criteria that we're making a judgment on to go, in this box, everything in this, you can always have a bit more of it.
Yep.
You will never need to go back to mundane marshmallows ever again. My book, Forest School Cooking, covers everything from how to build ovens to cooking in new and exciting ways, and a whole load of easy and amazing recipes that your groups will love. Order your copy today on Amazon.
This box... This box, absolutely not.
I know, and like paper, like, wool and all these things that we might use, and what is our personal relationship to them? Because I think if you did, if you're with your co-worker or whatever, and I think I would probably put different values on things than you would do in terms of
definitely.
don't care about that thing. They can literally like chuck it all over the floor and I wouldn't care. And then other things, you're like, the amount of posts on like Facebook forums.
I carry all the firewood up our hilly site.
Yeah.
And I am very different when we process firewood and light fires than the people that don't process the firewood.
The amount of posts about Sharpies in the mud, Sharpies missing their lids, all these things that forest school leaders will talk about and have really strong emotional reactions to, where they might not have that reaction about a different resource, and is it always financial? Is it about scarcity? Is it about how hard it is to get those things? Is it about perceived recklessness or not caring? Because there's a difference, isn't there, in someone just going, like somebody not having the awareness maybe.
Yeah, not engaged with it.
And scattering the Sharpies all over the floor. And one Adam, I go, they just don't care about those things. They haven't got respect for that property. And there's a difference between that and going, I just need to use more clay, build a big tower, because there is engagement and awareness there. Both of them are resulting in a reduction in the resource and a financial implication for the practitioner and a lack of resource for the following group. But they've got kind of, because I think that's also a value judgment that we put on things. We might go, that person is using a lot of that resource, but it's worth it in this occasion because I can see through their facial expression, their tone of voice, what they're doing, they're getting so much out of it that it is worth the sacrifice. And there might be other times where we make, and we might be right or wrong with that judgment. That's completely and utterly subjective. We might other times going, guys, you're just like trashing the joint. Like you're just wanging the Sharpies around the forest like you're playing darts with them. And that is like not acceptable. Don't do that. Because you haven't even cared. You're just like, you're focusing on dancing right now, but you're dancing on top of all the Sharpies with their lids off.
Yeah.
But there's always a value judgment. And that's really hard. Because then that is going to... So, like, the whole playworker theory would be about, like, saying yes as much as possible, enabling... and I'd be really interested to hear, maybe from someone who works in, like, a playwork environment all the time that maybe isn't forest school, about how they address these issues and whether they do have, like, categories about resources that are use as much as you like whenever you want and how you budget for that as well, because that's the thing. Another thing I've noticed is that, like... I tend to have a slightly catastrophizing mindset, although that seems like a very grand term for talking about using too much clay. But I will, in the moment, I find it quite hard to step outside of that moment and go, this doesn't last forever. So if someone's using a lot of clay, I don't know why I keep coming back to clay, I'll think, oh my God.
Fingerprint need clay.
Everyone is going to use the clay all day, every day. That clay is £15 a bag.
Oh, you just extrapolate it out?
Oh my God.
Yeah.
We can't carry on like this. I've got to have a sentence to say. I've got to have some kind of action to do.
We're already bankrupt now on clay.
I know.
Yeah,
and what are we going to do with all the boxes of clay? And I need a sentence. I'm not doing my job properly because I need to have a sentence that explains.
You're just spinning out on someone.
I'm spinning out.
Okay.
And actually what happens is that, yes, this happens for like 3 weeks. That it's all about building Warhammer armies out of clay. More. And then
painting everything. Painting.
And then it just goes. Just gone. And that isn't always because the clay's run out. That is because that play cycle has finished and clay isn't the thing anymore. And I kind of find that sometimes...
Cup filled.
Yeah. But would it have been cup filled if I'd gone, guys, I think we're using a bit too much clay now. Can we stop?
Yeah. There's also... So I realised I can respond to quite a lot of your things by going, there's also...
That's talking, isn't it?
Shit.
Yes, and?
Is that how social conversations work?
Yeah.
I'm learning. Sometimes we're, in terms of just broadening this, like, navigating the situation out, there is also the situation where you are not the only adult, I don't mean you, one is not the only adult present at a point in time where a child asks for more than a equal share of a resource. Sorry, I had to
more than a fair share. No,
I had
edit.
to walk. Yes, I had to walk round that phrase, which took my brain a minute. More than their equal share might be. So there's something there about like a social expectation that is equality or equity or, you know, that one of the things that holds society together, you could argue, is fair share, is not taking more than you need. You know, like extreme examples, fucking billionaires, right?
Exactly.
That's the thing where you're going like, and that's extreme hyperbole, right? No one's suggesting, I don't think, that someone who would like a little bit more flour is gonna spiral out and become Jeff Bezos. But like
that, in a nutshell, that is a lot of the decisions that parents and adult caregivers of children are making all the time, because we're kind of, there's like a moral element to parenting about like raising a good human being, and that maybe
member of society.
Maybe these people haven't had that messaging, and we need to impress it upon the children. And especially like sustainability, which is a note I've made, is like, that's a whole other piece of the pie, isn't it? Is to like, how far do you go down that discussion?
But children aren't sustainable. Childhood is not sustainable.
I think some people would argue with that.
I fight me. Fuck it.
Well, some people are living all the time, every day, trying to make sure that their lives are really sustainable, eco-friendly, not wasteful.
I'm not saying people aren't trying. I'm not saying,
and that means
it's like
saying no to their children. Loads, I can imagine, because we are living where we live anyway, in a place which is all about like, stuff, get more stuff.
Well, I think what I meant was like, in the pursuit of sustainability, lots of valuable parts of childhood or resources for childhood will be axed, possibly unfairly, in terms of like, do you need toys to play with? Sometimes. Okay, but we could be more sustainable if we didn't buy you any toy. Like, if we only bought you this one toy. Okay, well, that's fine. Okay, but how does that impact childhood? Okay, well, what's the most sustainable thing? Like, okay, having nappies isn't sustainable. Okay, we're going to do cloth nappies. Well, cloth nappies aren't sustainable because they only last this long. You should actually be doing this free pooping thing where they walk around. But, like,
there's
being a human is not like perfectly sustainable. But I think I've wandered off here because I made a.
But no, but I think you're making an important point about sort of play. Basically, either uses or affects stuff.
I think it would be
changes stuff. It uses stuff.
It would be lovely if play did not consume.
Yeah,
but it does. So, a lot of the time. I think, like, for some people, the ideal play would be play that uses, like, hey, look, you can still go super, like, ethical. You know, be like wooden resources, wooden toys that can be reassembled at the end of the play session and can be put back, and another child can use them, and then another child can use them, and there's no particular wear and tear on them.
What about, though, so communities that are living without many human-made resources at all?
Yeah.
So no prefabricated toys, so children in a very sort of wild environment. I mean, they're still playing. So we can't necessarily say that play uses stuff and is, does consume. I don't think.
What type of play do you imagine?
Well, so if you were living in an environment without a lot of this human-made stuff. I'm playing devil's advocate for a minute, yeah. And obviously those communities are becoming rarer and rarer, but there will be children
growing up. Do you mean like hunter-gatherer communities?
That like growing up in a place where, like, you've got the whatever clothes you're wearing, and that's pretty much it. You're still able to play. You're able to play with and I think a lot of forest school practitioners would be like, that is the kind of holy grail of like, I'm not going to bring any human-made resources into my setting. The children need to play with the woods. They need to play with sticks. They need to play with water.
Playing with just again
stones, mud, leaves. That's it.
So, devil's advocate, unless you are playing with the abiotic components in the woods, building dens with sticks disrupts habitats.
Yes.
Playing with.
Well, even playing
mud,
with soil creates.
Playing with soil,
erosion.
Nitrogen. Like that's.
Yeah.
So I think.
It changes the environment.
It changes the environment, and therefore it slightly consumes the environment. You could argue. perhaps. I think if I just in the abstract, maybe what I meant was, in the name of sustainability, I think play needs would be axed a lot sooner than other needs. And maybe that's similar to where we're talking about flour versus clay. It's a lot easier to say you should be able to consume flour, you should be able to consume sticks for den building and soil for mud play, than it is to say you should be able to consume another thing because it has a higher impact, a higher cost, a higher, whatever. But I think I do want to go back to the thing about the social expectations of like
fairness
and taking more. I do too. And that how that feels to see your child wanting more, taking more, or how it feels to see someone not allowing someone to have more.
Yeah, I know. It's really interesting because I can actually see both arguments really strongly and clearly. I can see an argument for going, I'm going to give everybody the same amount, so it's fair.
Yeah.
And someone asking for more and going, thing is, I've given everyone the same amount, so it's fair. So I'm just going to stick to that, actually, because I don't want to make anyone feel like they're more important than anyone else. I want to see that I want to appear as a trustworthy adult that is going to make sure that things are fair. You know, I can see that as a valid point of view, but I can also see the opposite of going, this person has a completely valid desire, need, want to make, they're just making this thing and they just need a bit more for whatever reason. And nobody else is asking for more. So I'm going to assume that they're all right. And I'm going to say yes to this person because they're asking me. And therefore I'm signalling to the other people that if you need something, you can ask me. And I might say no sometimes, but if I do, there's going to be a reason behind it other than I'm just doing it equally so it's fair. Isn't it actually more fair to listen to people's requests, consider it, make a judgment, and explain it to them? Isn't that fair? I don't know. But then you might go, well, someone might feel too shy to ask, or they might want more and they're not asking, or they feel snubbed, or
I think
those kind of things.
Yeah, and I think this is one of the, again, multitude of things that makes the job taxing. Is like when you are making that decision, you are balancing social emotional understanding, you're balancing what you know about the group, you're balancing what you think is coming up in the afternoon, you're balancing all of those things.
It all depends.
To make that decision. I have a different scenario to propose to you, though, because all the scenarios we've talked about up to now are a situation where the leader is the bottleneck to the resource.
Yeah.
So I think we should also talk about the times where we are not involved, but that someone is going, I need more.
Yeah.
Maybe a group of people has dug, it could still be clay. They've dug clay out of the ground, or they have collected sticks to build a den with. And then some people, sometimes it's not one person, sometimes it's a group. Sometimes that's the important thing. It's that, like, me and this person, we're taking more of the sticks.
Yeah, raiding. Do you think that's the same category?
I think so I think that is adjacent to it, because there's maybe two scenarios here then. One is like consensual. You are watching a group of children divvy up a resource unequally.
Yeah.
And whether you, as a leader, feel like you have any onus to intervene or to articulate what's happening, or if you, because that can again change whether you think that everybody knows that that's what happened. Like, does that person know they've been shortchanged? Does that matter? Is that your job?
I know. Oh my God.
But this is again taking more than an equal share of a resource, and so it's different when you're not the bottleneck, because the bottleneck, you're also taking the decision.
Yeah.
Outside of that, it's actually a bigger question about maybe how you feel the world should work.
I know.
And that carries a lot more baggage.
I know. And Peter Gray would definitely say that if the adult doesn't get involved, then that's democracy. And that's how, hello Raven, that's how children learn about
democratic play, all that stuff.
Yeah, that kind of thing, because if it's allowed to just play out how it plays out, inevitably somebody will either go, hey, I feel shortchanged and I don't feel this fair, or someone's going to go, that's not fair, they haven't got this, or there will be, or decisions are being made about like, I kind of do feel shortchanged, but I'm going to bring that up later, or I'm going to ride with it for now until I feel like actually this has got too much. And there's all those social dynamics and a bit like that thing about you learn about friendship by breaking it.
Yeah.
And that sort of learning. But geez, it's hard to watch. It is so hard to watch, especially, and obviously keeping an eye on verging into bullying or the repeated patterns of behaviour. And that is our job, right? To be really observant of that and to decide when to step in to protect people, and when to go, this is really making me wince to watch this, but I'm going to try to trust the process and trust that it works out okay. Because I guess the benefit that we always have is that if it doesn't work out okay, we can then have conversations about that because it's long term.
Right.
Because we know. Whereas if it's like a one-off thing and something like that happens,
that grievance just goes. It just lives on in that person.
That's just it, and that's their memory of forest school. It's just that it was just really unfair and horrible, and nobody helped me. Like, that's bad. You don't want to be in that territory, do you?
So that again is affecting the decision making in terms of like, would you step in?
Yeah.
Would you?
Yeah.
How much do you show your hand? How much do you go, I actually have a responsibility here too?
Yeah. And that might be where some people have sociocratic discussions as well. So some settings might go, so-and-so has proposed that they want to use all of the ribbon because they've got this project that they want to do. Other people might want some ribbon later. Let's talk about it. Let's stop. Everyone stop, and let's have a sociocratic moment of, do we allow this person to use the ribbon as a community? And if we don't, then we wait till everyone is in agreement. We don't vote on it because that's not fair.
Yeah.
We talk about it until everybody agrees one way or the other. Which sometimes we do. So
that's a scenario where I guess the resources we're talking about here are still communal resources. They're just natural. I guess the examples I've been thinking of in my head are sticks collected, clay that's dug, firewood that's been chopped, things like that.
Yeah.
It just occurred to me as we were talking, in terms of like moving this scenario around and seeing like, what does it feel like if this happens? What it feels like if this happens? I don't know if we've talked about it on the podcast, but when we most recently saw Nick and Sunny, they were talking about that in their settings, they have, if you bring food, or one of their groups, it was like, if you bring food, you have to share it.
Yeah.
Everything that's brought is, and we had
Applications for Forest School leader training at Children of the Forest are now open. Come and learn with me and Wem at our private woodland down in Devon. Find out more by heading to myforestschooltraining.co.uk. See you there.
Sure, Nick and Sunny can tell me if I've summarised this wrong, but it was to do with people, high wealth people, bringing in very high status food and then using that as social currency. And so they kind of went, okay, you can't be doing that. You can't be buying favours, essentially, you know. So if you bring it, you have to share it. Now, in that scenario, what do you do if you see you've got 5 kids, one of them's brought a tube of Pringles, and they're going, oh yeah, I know this, we have to share it. And then someone goes, I would like a bit more, like, can I have another handful? Does that person have to give another handful? Does that person, is that
And
then,
do you have to share it out equally?
they have to share it out equally, so if they get another handful, everybody, and so there's different scenarios here in sort of consuming all the resources, I think, in terms of like where our position is and in relation to that resource. And we said at the start about how our own investment emotionally or financially in the resource plays a huge part.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to then remove that completely.
Yeah.
I go, I'm not financially responsible for that tube of Pringles. I'm not emotionally invested in that tube of Pringles.
So all that's left is the morality of it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's then interesting. And then to pull that back and go, okay, so with those things stripped away, I would feel conflicted.
Yeah.
So then if I take that feeling and pull it all the way back and go, okay, now I'm doing bread and clay with learners groups where I am in control of the resource.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure.
It's so hard, isn't it?
I think it's still a yes where I can. Yes where I honestly can.
Yeah. And I think try to be as transparent as is reasonable and appropriate when you're saying no.
Yeah.
So if you've got even if that concern is, I'm just a bit concerned about if I give you loads more, but there's not enough to give everyone else loads more, how that'll make other people feel. There you go. What are you going to do about that? Even if it's that.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it might not be that, because sometimes everyone's just so involved in what they're doing, they're not even thinking about more, they don't need more, they literally don't need more, and it's fine. And it's just about that person's need alone.
If you take that thing about that person's need alone, do you think there's modelling behaviour that would carry forwards as learners become adults, having seen examples of, I don't want to go all like communist about it, but like essentially to each according to their need.
Yeah.
That like the modelling behaviour of that person needed a bit more today.
Yeah.
And so I helped them and gave them a bit more.
Yeah.
And how that then ripples through other people, feeling confident for themselves and going like, oh, on days where I need a little bit more, I will be able to ask for a little bit more. But also carrying that forwards that if they see someone who needs a little bit more, they have got a very different experience compared to someone who has only, like, an extreme example would be someone who's only experienced that, like, pre-divvied up resources, everyone the same, so it's fair. We don't. Then when they see someone who needs more, their only experience is that's not fair. Like
you've had your allocation.
That fairness is the same as equality. That is, and just an interesting
because. Yes, and I'm spinning out now to like the wider society,
okay, let's
money,
fix it. Go on.
benefits,
come on then,
social housing, like everything.
Okay.
Because the thing is that life isn't fair. So what I mean is, everyone who's, I'm just going to go back to the bread and flour.
Sure.
The person going, I need more flour. Like, people don't arrive at that table from an equal footing for whatever reason. So you can't necessarily just go, well, it's fair that everyone gets the same, because it isn't. There you go.
No, do it with paint now.
Problem solved.
Just because I want to be devil's advocate and take it away from food, because I do feel like food has got this nugget to it.
True.
That changes it. And this is where...
Okay, like, you mean squidgy paint as well, not like...
I mean,
so,
a tube of squidgy paint, fine note. I'm just playing, I'm just picking holes at it for fun, basically.
Oh, God, the squidgy paint is another thing like clay. It really makes me feel funny.
If I just pull everything you've just said, do you go, everyone arrives at the painting table on an unequal footing? Therefore, like, I'm just... No,
I stand by... I think I stand by that. I stand by that in terms of opportunity, for example. Some people might have endless opportunities to engage in that kind of resource in that kind of way in other settings. Other people might not. You know, people might have the allowance to behave in a certain way with that resource in other places, and some people might not. So I'm talking about access to it and engagement with it and the way that you engage in it. So some people, for example, you know, you could talk about messy play and how allowed that is for some children in their homes or in other settings. You know, some people might never have had that experience, but have that need to have that sensory experience and that creative experience, and they don't get that met, you know, and therefore they just need more in order to have that experience and to experiment more. And some people also might just not be that as interested in it as other people. Some people have a real, you know, focused interest and
Yeah, you flip it the other way, and you
And need,
you can
and other
go, the
people
people that
don't.
don't care about paint get as much paint
Yeah.
as the people that bloody love it.
Yeah. Then you're wasting the resource. Then that is a waste.
Mm.
Giving someone loads of something when they don't need it, that isn't sustainable. I think
as much as we can.
I think that's it. Interesting. So interesting.
And also one of those real ones that's just like, academically, I think this. Is it going to stop me having thoughts and feelings and, still finding it difficult when X happens?
But the fact that we've talked about it now, and maybe that listeners have listened to this absolute torrent of waffle, might mean that they go away and have discussions with their learners about these issues. And I think that's just the key to it. The more you can discuss something and bring it to light and elucidate, is that a word? Your thought processes, the more learning.
Yeah. This waffle chat
has been brought to
you by Rosie and Julie and Rachel and Emma and Candice and Sarah and Claire and Heidi and Louise and Michael and Anna. Thank you very much
for supporting us on Patreon.
If you want to support us on Patreon, you can go to patreon.com/Children of the Forest.
We've got some juicy author guests.
We've got
coming
authors
up.
lined up, and what we do is when we know we've got an author coming on, we put a little post up there for the Patreon people and say, "Hey, do you want to ask them any questions? Hey, what do you think about this?" And it helps people. So you might like.
Can I announce one of our authors now?
No.
Okay.
No, because if they go on Patreon, they'll see it.
Okay.
And they'll go, "Oh my God, I didn't know you were doing." So,
okay.
And there'll be more coming.
Sure.
More waffle chats. I'm glad you recovered from the
bird pooping on my head.
Shithead incident.
Oh, I said the word elucidate.
You came back. You're a classy lady.
Maybe that pooed some intelligence into my brain. I'll probably find that it doesn't mean what I think it means, and therefore it wasn't at all.
We'll leave that.
Yeah.
To the listeners.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.